8,500 years. One city, conquered, burned, rebuilt, conquered again. The greatest empires in history rose and fell on these shores. The greatest armies ever assembled broke against these walls. This dome has watched them all. Romans, Byzantines, Crusaders, Ottomans. Every civilization that ever mattered left its mark here. This is Istanbul, the city that refused to die, and this is its full story. There are places on this earth that seem chosen by history itself. Places where the land rises just so above the water, where two seas meet, where every wind from every direction eventually arrives. Istanbul is one of those places. But before it was Istanbul, before it was Constantinople, before it was Byzantion, before any name was given to it at all, this ground was already alive. We begin not with emperors or conquerors. We begin with fire. A small fire burning on a rocky shore above the Sea of Marmara. Sometime around 6,500 BC, the people who built that fire left no written records. They carved no inscriptions into stone. They built no monuments to themselves, but they were here. Archaeologists found them beneath the modern district of Kadikoy, on the Asian shore of what would one day become the greatest city on earth. We call their culture the Fikirtepe Culture, named for the hill where their traces were uncovered. They were fishermen, they were hunters, they shaped clay into vessels and dried them in the sun. They buried their dead with care. They watched the waters of the Marmara shift with the seasons. They felt the winds change direction and knew what weather was coming. They had no idea what this land would become, and yet they stayed. Generation after generation, they stayed, because this land rewarded those who stayed. The sea was full of fish, the hills were covered in game, fresh water streams ran down to the shore. For a people living close to the edge of survival, this peninsula between two great bodies of water was as close to paradise as the ancient world offered. Centuries passed. The Fikirtepe people faded, as all peoples eventually do. But the land remained, and others came. By around 3000 BC, the shores of the Bosphorus were dotted with small settlements. Traders moving between Europe and Asia paused here. Fishermen built permanent villages. The strategic importance of this narrow strait, this corridor between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, was beginning to assert itself. Not yet in the language of empires and armies, but in the quieter language of commerce, of movement, of people who understood that whoever controlled this water controlled the flow of the world's goods. The Bronze Age arrived, it iron. Cultures rose and fell across Anatolia and the Balkans. Great civilizations burned brightly and collapsed, but the settlements along the Bosphorus endured. This is the deepest truth about Istanbul. Long before it became famous, it was simply a place where human beings chose to live, chose to stay, chose to build their fires and raise their children and bury their dead. That choice is where our story begins. And what a story it will be. Now, let us go back. Let us go all the way back to the 7th century BC. The Greek world was overflowing. The city-states of mainland Greece, Athens, Corinth, Megara, Sparta, were producing more people than their land could feed. And so the Greeks did what they had always done when the land ran short. They looked to the sea. They were the great planters of civilization, sowing cities like seeds across the ancient Mediterranean world. And now their eyes turned east, toward the Black Sea, toward the rich grain fields of the Pontic steppe, the abundant fisheries of those dark northern waters. But to reach the Black Sea, you had to pass through the Bosphorus. And to control the Bosphorus, you had to hold a particular rocky promontory on its western shore, a promontory so perfectly positioned that it commanded views in every direction. In 667 BC, a Megarian named Byzas led a group of colonists to that promontory. The oracle at Delphi had told him to settle opposite the city of the blind. He looked at that rocky triangle of land, surrounded by three sides by water, naturally defensible, with a harbor that could shelter hundreds of ships, and he made his decision. He called the city Byzantion, after himself. It was, from its very first breath, a city built for survival. The walls went up quickly, the harbor filled with ships. Merchants arrived from every corner of the Greek world. Byzantium sat astride the most important trade route in the ancient world. Every ship passing between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea paid a toll. The city grew wealthy, and wealth in the ancient world attracted danger. The Persians came first. Darius the Great, expanding his empire westward, swept through Thrace and brought Byzantium under Persian control around 513 BC. When the Great Persian Wars erupted, Greece rose against the empire. Byzantium threw off its Persian chains. The Macedonians arrived next. Philip II besieged Byzantium in 340 BC. The city resisted fiercely. According to legend, a mysterious light in the night sky illuminated the Macedonian forces as they tried to dig beneath the walls. Byzantium credited the goddess Hecate with the miracle. They minted coins bearing the crescent moon, a symbol that would one day adorn the Ottoman flag. Byzantium repelled Philip. It remained free. Alexander the Great swept through the region shortly after, but Byzantium negotiated rather than fought, maintaining its independence while acknowledging Macedonian supremacy. It was a skill the city would practice many times over the coming millennia, the skill of survival through cunning as much as through force. It allied with Rome, because Byzantium understood something that larger, more powerful cities often forgot, that geography is destiny, that a city that sits at the crossroads of the world does not need to be the strongest city in the world. It only needs to survive long enough for the world to realize it cannot do without it. The world was about to realize exactly that. And with Rome, a new chapter was about to begin.